All right, we'll go ahead and begin here. Welcome, everyone. My name's Brian Peck, and we're super excited about our Mazévo Connect here that we've put together. This is our first time doing this. We thought we would try to get the feel of a user conference, but more in like a virtual type setting. We used to do a lot of conferences with our old company, EMS Software, back in the day, and we really enjoyed getting to meet everybody and sharing ideas, things like that. And that's kind of where the idea for this Mazévo Connect was born. So this is our first one of these. We'll love to get your feedback afterwards if you want to see more of this and ideas for future ones. But yeah, we're gonna kick this thing off here. So the plan for today is before we get started, I'm gonna have Dean Evans say a few words here just to introduce everybody. And then I'm going to introduce our featured presenter today, Lindee McCurley. And just so everybody knows, we are recording this, so you will get a copy of the recording afterwards. And I'll also share the chat with everybody as well. So if you want to know who's here and possibly reach out to people or something like that, you're welcome to do that. The other thing too, just housekeeping wise, if you have any questions for our presenter, we do want this to be interactive, even though you're all on mute and it's a big group. Put your questions in the chat and we'll be looking at those, and we'll try to get to as many as we can through the presentation today. We're going to save about the last 15-20 minutes or so for Q&A. So put your questions in the chat as we're going through this. And also, if you have any suggestions for maybe future Mazévo Connect sessions like this, throw those in the chat too. Again, we love the feedback here. So with that, I want to introduce our CEO, Dean Evans, and he's just going to say a few words for everybody.
Hi, everybody. Dean Evans. It's good to see you in your little tiny window there. So, hey, thanks for coming to our first Mazévo Connect. We're excited about this as a way to deliver additional information to all of our customers and everything. So really excited about that, and a big thank you for Lindee offering to do this. I'll just introduce some of our staff here. We've got Wendy Newland. I think a lot of you know her, as she does a lot of the onboarding and support with this. Somebody you probably don't recognize, but some of you may, Devin Jansen. He takes care of all of our cloud operations and stuff. And if you have SSO turned on, he's the one on our end that helped make that happen. And then Claire DeGroat is on our sales team, and some of you may have interacted with her. So we're just super excited about this. And again, we'd love to hear feedback. I mean, we could see this morphing into, tips and tricks and some other like sessions that you may see at a conference. So would love to hear your ideas on where we could take this. So with that, Brian, I'll flip it back over to you and we'll kind of get started.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Thanks, Dean. So I'd like to introduce our presenter today. It's Lindee McCurley. She's the Assistant Director at the Boling University Center over at University of Tennessee at Martin. And she's going to be talking today about Mazévo Ops a little bit. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Lindee.
All right. I'm going to share my screen with everybody. I hope I am. Let's see what I can do. Maybe. Are y'all seeing my screen for Mazévo?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And the lights just went off. My name is Lindee McCurley. I am the Assistant Director here at the University Center, and I've been in this role for a little over 4 years. And just a little background, we switched to Mazévo last spring. We were using a very old system that we all hated. And this came to us, and it hit us at a pretty perfect time because we weren't doing a whole lot of events. So it's a good time for us to switch everything over pretty seamlessly. And our outside users not really realize that there was a shift going on. But how we rolled it out was I spent a couple of weeks building our system with Wendy, and then after that, started switching all of our events over. And for about a week, I double booked things, once in the old system and once in the new system, and very quickly learned that I really, really want out of this old system. And so I switched everybody over just as quickly as I could. And the easiest way for us to do that with our staff was I did it in 2 phases. I brought in our facility staff first because they're my setup crew and they're the ones that needed to see it and learn it first in my eyes. So I brought them in and they sat in my office and I said, get your phones out and I want you to download 2 apps for your phone. I want you to download the Mazévo app and Adobe Acrobat Reader. Both of them are free. Both of them are small storage space on your phone. And they were happy to do that. And then we set up a meeting with Wendy in one of our conference rooms, and she met with them as a staff. And I brought in my day shift and my night shift. And Wendy, I think we did it about 2:00. And she walked them through what their side of Mazévo would look like. And then with my student staff that come in and work 8 to 11 every day, I did the exact same thing, except I left Wendy out of that part. I brought them all in for their staff training and said, get your phones out, download these 2 apps, and hooked up my phone to one of our TVs, and we walked through what a day in the life kind of looks like for them. But as far as operations, what Brian and Dean and Wendy wanted me to go over with y'all was, what do we do and how does it work for us? And for us here, we run 5 buildings out of Mazévo. I'm in charge of 2 of them. One building is just a few rooms that one of our admin assistants runs. And then the other 2 buildings are run by Eric Simmons, who is another assistant director in our division. But I come in every morning and I meet with my facility supervisor, who is Scott. And he sits with us and he says, this is what we've already got done before you even woke up this morning, because they get here at 6 and I get here at 8. So a lot of times they have most everything done before I come in. So I come in and my Mazévo screen when I log in looks exactly like this. And Scott and I sit down, he gets on his iPad that he has, and we sit in the office and we go day by day and start at the very beginning of the day and say, have you done this? And when he says yes, I click and mark it as the booking is ready. And we kind of go through the day. And as he gets done and marks things as confirmed, and I think that Brian is maybe going to help us share what his screen looks like later for our, I'm getting feedback. My boss is at the door. Let me see. Are y'all having trouble hearing me, Brian?
It was a little choppy. I think it might have been the feedback or something. So it seems like it might be a little better now. So
okay, I hope so. Okay. Kind of forgot where I was. So we sit and go through the whole day and plan out our day. He actually sits in here and he assigns his work to his workers. And again, we'll show you that as well when we show you what the mobile app looks like, where you can assign work out to your workers. One of the things that was very important to me was for my staff to be able to see what was going on, but also not be able to change anything. I wanted them to be able to look at it and make sure that everything was good, but not screw anything up. And that was something that they were very terrified about as well. They were very excited about a new system, but they had used this old system, I think, for 15 years, and it's all they knew. So they didn't want to mess anything up. So one of the things that we look at is our permissions, and you find that under your settings tab for your users. All of my student staff, Addie, I'll use her as an example. Addie is put in as an event planner, and all she can do is view events. And that is how my whole student staff is set up. And they like it that way so that they can't mess anything up. And then their security roles, they can have operations for service workers to review and reports to review. So if they want to review what's going on during the day, they can do that. But that's how the student staff is set up. The only difference between that and my facilities crew is I have my facilities manager marked as a service manager so that he can go in and assign tasks out to people. So that's the difference in the permissions. We do have a few people on our campus that are global administrators. The professional staff here in our office are global administrators, and then our assistant vice chancellor is a global administrator. But that is not a permission that we give out a lot. We have actually kept our permissions pretty tight, and have not given global permission to more than probably 5 people on our campus. You will also see on this screen that Darren Ray is one of our facility supervisors in another building. He is not anti-technology for anyone else. He's just anti-technology for him. And he prefers the pen and paper method. So this will probably always say resend invite to him. He has a flip phone. He's not ever going to switch to a smartphone. So the app and this doesn't really work for him, but what does work for him is the reporting features. So Eric does a daily report for him, and he can still go through and check off. So if you have somebody on your staff who is not big on technology, this does make it very easy to just run your report and hand them the piece of paper and move on. One of the things that we look at in our operations is pictures. That's why I had them download the Acrobat Reader, because some of our bigger rooms, especially our ballroom, while it does have a standard setup on some things, some days we have special setups that's very specific. Today and this upcoming weekend is one of those, our college fair that is coming up. This is the favorite feature of my facility staff, is they can just go and click and it brings up what that room is supposed to look like for them as far as setups go. They used to have to come and get a drawing from me, print it out, and then risk losing that drawing. Now they can pull it up on their phone, they can pull it up on their iPad, and it's always there. The second favorite feature is with our old program that we used, if we weren't on campus, we couldn't access it. So if we went home, if we were sick, if we were traveling, it was very difficult for us to do any kind of work, any kind of room booking, any kind of planning in our old system. With the way that Mazévo has us set up, I can be sitting at home, I can be traveling, I could be on the beach where I wish I was, and booking rooms and doing what I need to do and communicating with my staff. So that part has become very important to us. What my staff love about that is Wendy laughs when I tell this story. I used to get text messages specifically from my female staff members who wanted to know what's going on in the building tomorrow. We have a chancellor who is very active on social media. He loves to take selfies, and he loves to be in our office. Every time he's in the building, he tries to come by and snap a selfie for Snapchat, for Instagram. He's kind of on everything. But what my girls want to know is do they really have to get up and fix their hair and do their makeup and look really cute? Is there a chance that Dr. Carter is going to be coming into the building and putting them on his social media? I used to get that in a text message. Now they get on their app, they can look at the times that they're working and see who's in the building and if there's a chance he's going to be around, and they can know they don't have to do full hair and makeup today. They can wear their normal UTM t-shirt and be a normal college student and not have to be on all the time. Another thing that they like is that they can look into the future. I had some girls that wanted to buy concert tickets. They went to see Harry Styles last night, I believe. Before they booked their tickets, they got on Mazévo and said, how crazy is it going to be that night? How crazy is the campus going to be that night? So they could look and see what was going on around, and if it was going to be harder to get someone to cover their shift if they were working. So they could look ahead. In that, we had to have a very serious talk with my students, because they have a little bit of power that none of the other students do, in that they can see everything that's booked. That's great, and that's super. And I love that they can do that. But they also got a very stern warning in saying, don't abuse this power. If you're sitting in a student organization meeting and your president says, hey, do you think the legislative chambers are open on this night? They pretend that app doesn't exist on their phone, because we wanted to keep it fair as far as our students requesting rooms and the availability. So they request just like they would anything else. So they look for themselves as far as looking at what's going on, but for their organizations, they don't look for availability, because they don't know what I'm working on, what I've got in the works, trying to get booked for someone. They don't know if Anthony is here on this call and he has access to book rooms. They don't know if he's got something in the works, or Rachel. So they, in their organizational meetings, pretend that doesn't exist. And not threatened, but sternly warned that if they abuse that power, we're going to take the app off their phone and I'm going to remove their access, and they'll just get a generic login that they can use at the computer, and that's it. But they love being able to look ahead and plan. Am I going to have a little time to study for my test while I'm at work, or is there going to be 6 events going on that I'm going to be running back and forth at? So they're able to plan their weeks out, their weekends out, their study time while they're at work out a little bit better. One of the other things that they wanted me to talk to you about was lessons that we learned in doing this and switching over. The first thing was a mistake on my part, because in the first week and a half, there were 3 setups that we completely missed. And I kind of went to my setup crew and I said, why? What happened? Where did we mess up? And they said, it wasn't on my list, Lindee. It didn't show up. And what it was when I booked the rooms, I didn't put a setup in. I said, I'm going to skip this and come back to it. And I never came back to it. I was worried about getting everything transferred over. So my lesson learned out of that was, even if I put in, I need to update this later, if I put in that this is an empty room, I need to have some kind of setup put in so that my crew knows to check it and that it shows up on their list. It's going to be in the calendar, but that's not the main focus of what they look at. They're worried about the operations side. They're not worried about the calendar. They're worried about doing their checklist for the day. And so me going back and double checking and making sure that I had put in a setup for every single event that we had, even if it's this room needs to be completely empty, or it's the exact same as the setup before it had to have something in it so that they would know to check it. Another thing that we learned is that I have some of my facilities crew that like to work ahead, which is really great. If they tell me that they're working ahead, we ask our student organizations to give us a week in advance before they have their meetings. Anthony would probably jump here in the chat and tell you sometimes we get an hour before they say, hey, can we have a meeting room for tonight? And if we're lucky, we get a day. So sometimes things change very quickly on what our operations look like for the day. So I had to get my staff to come in and tell me, hey, I'm starting on this a day early, block it off so that you don't mess up what I've done. And that I didn't book something over the top of them setting up for our college fair and things like that. So more communication between us. I learned that we needed to, when they started on something, especially if it was the day before an event, that they needed to let me know so that I could block it off. Even if nobody else sees it, I needed to know that they were working on something ahead of time. So if y'all have any questions, Wendy, I haven't been watching time or watching the chat.
We do have one question. Can you show us?
Just 1 second. Try now, Wendy.
Hey, Wendy. Oh.
Lindee, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the questions was, can you show us what you mean about missing a setup? You weren't putting in a setup. Can you demonstrate what you were doing incorrectly?
Yes.
Okay.
Can y'all still hear me? Good?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll go back and share my screen. So when we add an event,
okay.
Wendy, I'm going to put this in on the test organization that we had set up. And we'll do it for 6 o'clock tonight. So when we pick a room, and I'll do our conference room that we have. When you click on it, it asks you to select a room setup, but you can skip that. And for me, when I was just trying to get things on the calendar so that I wasn't having to double book things, there were some things that were a month out, were 6 weeks out when I started switching things over that I didn't have a setup for yet. So I just pushed skip and didn't think anything else about it because I knew I could come back and fix it. The problem was I got busy and forgot to come back and fix it because it was showing up on my calendar for me. But I didn't realize, what we didn't realize, was that it wasn't showing up for my facilities crew because they didn't have a room set up. If there's not a room set up, if there's not anything for them to do, it's not going to show up on their list for them. So even if I go in and select empty room, it needs to have something on there. If you skip it, just make sure that you're coming back to it later to make sure that you're actually putting in a setup, or your setup crew or your student staff are not going to know to go check that room and make sure that it's ready. You can see it on your calendar. Anybody else can see it on the calendar side of it. But as far as the operation side, it won't show up if there's not a setup in there at all.
Okay. I have a two-part question.
Okay.
This one is, do the work items only work with an event, or can they be listed as individual tasks for staff to complete? We can give that to Brian or Dean. And then, Lindee, are you using work items or tasks for Manage Ops?
Do Brian or Dean want to go first?
Yeah, I'll take that. The work items, the whole idea behind a work item is you give it a date and time and a service provider, but you really don't tie it to an event. So if you wanted your staff to clean out a closet or check the bulbs on the projectors, it's all of the work that's not related to actual room setup and delivering equipment for a particular event. So they're kind of non-event things that you want to have done. So does that answer the question, Wendy?
Yeah. And then, so Lindee, do you at your school, do you use the tasks?
We've just got into that, actually. We had started it, I think just a little bit when we had our first call, Wendy, when we first tried this. What we usually mainly for is, like Dean said, outside of those normal room setup things, cleaning out the elevator and making sure that it's vacuumed good was one that came up Monday, I think this week, that got put on our night shift, making sure that was that they shampooed the carpets in our elevators. Another one is when we're waxing our floors. Scott assigns certain sections out to certain people, so he puts those tasks under work items assigned to them for that day. I am going to try to start using the task portion to get my student workers doing a little bit more of things, straighten up this storage room, make sure that you double check that this room has all the batteries replaced and all the microphones for our auditorium, because we've got a big event coming up. And that's just me having the time to put it in. I haven't done that yet. And that's just been the kind of the madness of the beginning of the semester starting. But we plan on using that. But
Okay.
you could do it for one of the things we discussed the other day was my staff that is working this weekend. One of the things that they have to remember to do is they can't just come in a UTM t-shirt this weekend. We're having a recruitment event, so they need to be in their staff polos that say that they're working for our office, and they need to be in nice khaki pants and those kinds of things. So that's a work task that's going to get put on their app for them. Hey, don't forget to wear your polo to work today. So some of those kinds of things. But I'm also going to use it, make sure that you're straightening up work areas, or that you're double checking our computer lab area. That is a good place for those, like Dean said, those extra items that don't necessarily fall under a setup of a normal event.
We have somebody that would like that demonstrated. So I'm wondering if you could assign or create a work item.
Okay.
Under Manage Ops.
Manage Ops. So if you go to work items, new work item, you can put it under room setup. You can put it under any of this. Double check batteries and auditorium. And we can set that for today. We can set it for tomorrow. Like it says multiple dates. If I want, the way my staff, student staff especially, they have the same schedule, 8 to 5 or 8 to 11, Monday through Friday. So if on every Thursday I want Addie to check the batteries in Watkins, you can set that up for multiple dates. But we can assign it to our staff and say, it's like Kaiten, because she's at work right now. Assign that to her, and it will show up on her app under her work items. And when we show the mobile app, we can show kind of what that looks like. But that's how you would add a new work item.
Brian, do you want to show it, Brian?
Let me stop sharing.
Yeah, I won't be able to show that work item because it was assigned to somebody else and I can't bring it up, but I can show you where it shows up in the mobile app there if anybody wants to see the mobile app here. Lindee, do you mind if I go in and show your stuff
Absolutely.
on the mobile app here? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. So let me go ahead and share this. And okay, let's see. All right, so I've just got my iPhone up here. I've got the Mazévo app open. I'm assuming most people on this call have seen the Mazévo app before, but it's just, I'm on an iPhone. You just download it from the App Store. When you first log into the mobile app, it gives you some options depending on your login, where you want to go. So with work items, those are under operations right here. And I'm actually logged into Lindee's system as we speak. So I'm looking at that same list that she would see here of everything that they have going on in the Student Center today under operations. And you can see here, I can scroll down, and these are all their events that are going on. If this is the first time you've seen this, anything with a green check next to it means it's ready. There, it means that, Lindee, does that mean you've signed off on it? You've looked at it and said, yep, this event's good to go?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're looking at here are bookings. So this is all the setups, right, for the day, but then work items is right here. Oh, somebody added a work item for me. Nice. Okay. So if I go here under work items, see that little number 1 next to it, that tells me, like, go click on this, and there it is, the room setup, double check the batteries in the auditorium. And I can go into that here and I can see if it's been started or not. So anyway, so that's kind of how this information gets delivered. Now, if I was Kaiten in this case, there would actually be a little thing here where I could check off if it's been completed or not. But because I'm not Kaiten, I can't do that at the moment. But yeah, that's how the work items get delivered to somebody's phone that way. So,
Perfect.
Yep.
We have another question. Are those tables, ropes, stanchions, chairs, etc., built into the system for us to do those drawings in Mazévo? I'm guessing, so if somebody could share Mazévo again. What they're referring to is the little room diagrams.
The one that I shared?
Yeah, I think it was a setup diagram.
Okay.
So if you just want to pull up manage operations again, we will point that out and I'll get.
Sure.
Ben, you asked the question. So as we point to the icon, are you talking about the icon to the far right, the little orange diagram, Ben? The last column.
These over here.
yeah. Why don't you just show them both and just, so we can see what they are.
Ben, the diagram that you're talking about is this one, right?
Yeah, that's not built in, Ben. That's actually Lindee's.
That is another wonderful program that I'll be glad to talk to you about, but it's not part of Mazévo. But being able to work with this program was one of the reasons that we picked Mazévo. Our old system would not let you upload a picture. It wouldn't let you update and upload a PDF, anything like that. That's why my staff had to come to me and get a picture. This is actually built out of a program called Microsoft Visio.
Okay.
But if you have a program that does that for you, if you draw something out on a piece of paper and take a picture of it on your phone, you can upload it that way. Eric, that I mentioned, that runs two of our other buildings, he has drawings that he made years ago for events that have been happening every year, that he drew in Microsoft Paint forever ago. And he has those saved as JPEGs on his computer. So he can now upload those so that we'll all have them and we can all go look at them. Because for the longest time, one of our bigger events that we have is our student organization fair at the beginning of the year. And it was just, Eric would hand us these pictures of, this is what it looked like last time we did it. And it was literally him standing at the top of our arena and us counting out tables. So he can now either hand draw it out if that's something that's quicker for you. You can do that. Or if you have a software program that will do that for you. We kind of laughed and joked about Microsoft PowerPoint earlier, about the good and the bad of Microsoft PowerPoint. You could do a slide on Microsoft PowerPoint and draw out your rooms with, circles and say, put an 8 in it. This has got 8 chairs at this table, and then save that slide as a PDF or a JPEG and upload it in. It just kind of depends on what you have at your disposal. This was a program that we've had for forever. So it's just what I use personally for drawing out rooms.
Awesome. We have another question directed back at the work items. Do the work items only work with an event? Oh, wait, sorry. The work item, does it need to have someone logged into Mazévo, right? We cannot have a generic account for a student staff to use. So I'll put this to the Brians and the Deans of the world, not necessarily you, Lindee.
Brian, you want that one?
Sure.
Delegate number one, yeah. Bachelor number one.
Sure, I'll take it. Actually, if people are paying attention to the chat, it looks like Laura just put in a comment that's related to this. So you don't have to assign a work item to an individual. That's an option. And if you don't, then the work item is going to just show up for everybody. And it's kind of like whoever wants to do it can go in and check it off and mark it as complete. So it just kind of depends on the mode that your staff operates under. It looks like at Hawaii there, she puts in a good example of why they don't assign them to individuals that way. So you can do the same thing as well for work that's part of an event. So if it's a setup, right, that an event needs, and there's a room set up and audio visual equipment or whatever, you can assign those to individual staff members on those teams, or you can just leave it wide open and whoever's working that day, decides to do it. So we see it both ways.
Now, Wendy, your question, was it about user security and logging in? That's what I heard.
Yeah, the work item, does it need to have someone logged into Mazévo? We cannot have a generic account, so.
Yeah, so the way security works in Mazévo is everybody needs their own user ID and password. And that's certainly the case if you're using, single sign-on. Everybody's going to have their own credentials. But since Mazévo doesn't track, it's not licensed by the number of users, it's the rooms. So you can have as many user accounts in there as you want. So there really shouldn't be an issue with giving each student worker their own account. So, but yeah, you need to be logged in to see that stuff.
Okay, I hope that answered the question.
But you can go in, and if a student staff graduates, for example, you can go in and once they graduate, delete them out, and basically take away their access, or a staff member that's no longer working for the university anymore, things like that. You can go in and take them out. For us here at the university, the only way I could think of having a generic login for your student staff would be working with your IT department to create basically an email address that is just for that student staff. For our computers here in the center, we have a generic login that our staff uses to log into all of our computers that are ours, so that they don't have to use their accounts. Or if visitors are coming in off campus, they don't have a login that they could use to log into our computers. So we have a generic login to the computers. But if your IT staff maybe created a generic email address that you could set up a login for, and set it up through that email address, if your IT department was willing to do that, would be the only way I can think of that working. But that just kind of depends on what your IT will allow you to do.
Okay. We have another question from Lester from the great state of Missouri. On the events in my app under room sets and resources, I have the not started and in progress and completed buttons, but my students do not have that. What security policy or security rights do they need to have? Not necessarily you, Lindee. I'll let the two guys fight over that one.
So
just making sure they know how to use the software, everybody.
You're testing us, Wendy. You're testing us.
You're testing us. Which buttons? The setup ready?
Yeah, they don't have, his students don't have not started and in progress and completed buttons. My students do not have that. What do they need?
So they would need this service worker role that says operations service worker. That person with that role would be able to mark things as in progress and completed.
Yeah.
So that's the magic role to get to that.
Too, isn't there something about you need to have a service provider that you are part of? So
yes.
If I'm part of the AV team, then I will be able to mark things complete for AV, but I won't be able to mark things as complete for catering, just making up that example there. So, and that's done under my staff. You can do that in the app there on the desktop, and that's where you indicate, oh, these are the people that can mark off things as complete for AV or for room setup or things like that.
Yeah, if they have the service worker role, but they haven't picked any service providers that they're associated to, then they would only see events, but they couldn't. Yeah, they can't mark them as completed. So you'd need two things. You need the role, and you'd need to say what service providers. And you may have to go in, if it's everything, and pick all of the service providers and say, I can manage any of these. So.
Any other questions coming in? Let's see. Oh, Lester said thanks. Okay. Well, you've got Dean. Does anybody want to see a new feature in Manage Operations?
Now's your chance. Yeah.
I heard one. This is heard one from Boise. It's kind of tied into operations, but they wanted the service workers to be able to use the messaging tool to communicate back to event planners. So, and vice versa. So the event planner could send a message to the service team. So does anybody have any, give us a thumbs up or thumbs down or something. Let us know.
I think Hawaii wanted that too.
Yeah,
maybe?
I think Laura might have wanted that.
Yeah, now's your chance to lobby for it if that's what you like.
You'll never get to ask again.
Right.
One of the things that we discussed at one point, Wendy and I talked about, and I think it was actually with Hawaii, was if Scott, my facilities manager, is planning ahead for tomorrow and he's assigning out his staff, which for him is Amanda, Jeff, and Tommy. But Amanda calls in sick. So in the morning, can he look and just say, I want to pull up all of Amanda's stuff and reassign it to Jeff, or I want to give certain items to Jeff and certain items to me. So that was one of the things that we talked about. I don't know that we ever put that in
Dean's
writing.
writing it down. Dean's writing it down. Perfect.
Dean's writing it down
right now. Some way to change assignment. Okay.
And that was just one of those, especially right now with what we're dealing with sometimes people are absolutely fine, and then tomorrow they're in quarantine, and you have to just be able to, a couple of clicks and reassign would be great.
I don't think we have any more questions rolling in.
Right.
Lindee, I have one question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your favorite feature? And it doesn't have to be with managed operations. It can be anything in Mazévo. Just what's your favorite feature?
I actually asked this question to Eric as well. I called him this morning and said, all right, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. And our answers were the same. Mazévo will not let you double book.
Oh.
It physically will not let you double book yourself. You put in your setup times and you put in your teardown times. It won't let you book. I mean, even though, for example, for Eric, we have almost an Olympic sized swimming pool. It's about 6 inches too short to be an Olympic sized swimming pool. So we can have one thing going on in one end of the pool and a water aerobics class going on in the shallow end and scuba diving going on in the middle. He has to book the pool in 3 different sections. So if he wants to be able to have free swim, he has to book it in a certain area of the pool so that you don't accidentally schedule 2 different water aerobics classes on top of each other. And I don't tell a student organization, yeah, sure, I think it's open, and I go and I click it, and if it doesn't give me the setup time and a teardown time that I need, it will not let me offer that room. It'll offer other suggestions of what will work, but it won't let me double book things. If it would just not let us book out every single room all at the same time so that we're not running all over the place, that would help. But that's just the nature of the world we live in. But that it doesn't, it keeps me from messing up as much as possible. Like I said, as long as I can remember to not skip this part, and get in too big of a hurry, it kind of keeps me in check. My second favorite feature would be I can get on my app, and I don't know, I think maybe Brian was sharing his screen. With me being a global administrator, when I look on my app and I look at the operations for the day, whenever it says room setup and it's in a certain color, it tells me where they're at on setup. The little dot that's out beside it, when it's red, they haven't started on it. When it's yellow, they are working on it. When it's the teal blue color, they're finished. I can look very quickly and kind of see where they're at, especially if I'm running off to a meeting and, oh my gosh, have they even started this yet? I can look and it's at a yellow dot. They're working on it. I know where they're at. And it also, not to be a little big brother with this, it kind of lets me track where they're at in the building, to know what they're doing.
Great. Brian, I think we're good. Thanks, Joe. We've got a suggestion in the chat about our next Connect. So I guess we're going to have another one.
Yeah, good. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, Lindee, this has been great. I learned a ton from these types of things. I mean, we talk to different customers all the time. We hear different types of operations and ways of doing things, all of this. So, I mean, I'm learning stuff all the time from you all. And Lindee, we really appreciate you sharing this with everybody. And if everyone on this call, if you thought this was valuable here, I mean, let us know. Let us know what you'd like to see in the future. We would like to do more of these. We love getting together with everybody and sharing ideas, stuff like that. But we want your ideas on what you think would be most helpful here. So before we sign off, does anybody have any last comments? Dean, Wendy, Lindee, anybody here?
No, I just appreciate everybody coming today. Hope to see you on another one of these. So
yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Well, I will send out an email with a link to the recording on here and a link to the chat if you want to see who's been on here and things like that. But again, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining today, and we'll let you get on with your days here.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.